Hello, everyone! Today, we're revisiting the beloved cast of McMillan and Wife. After 55 years, their lives changed in ways few fans expected. From quiet retirements to shocking deaths, many endured deep personal pain. Here's how they look now. Nancy Walker as Mildred. Nancy Walker was born on May 10, 1922, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. At 49 years old, she played Mildred, the sharp-tongued housekeeper who constantly challenged the McMillans in McMillan and Wife. Her biting humor and unforgettable timing made the character a fan favorite throughout the series. Her private life, however, carried its own quiet struggles. Walker first married radio personality Gar Moore in 1948, but the marriage collapsed in less than a year. In 1951, she married musical theater instructor David Craig, and the couple welcomed a daughter, Miranda Craig. However, long rehearsals, touring productions, and television schedules kept her away from home for long stretches, forcing the couple to constantly rebuild their family life. But the greatest threat to Walker came from something she never managed to escape: decades of heavy smoking. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, she remained active in television, directing episodes of shows like Alice and appearing in comedies such as Murder by Death. Yet behind the scenes, her health was quietly deteriorating. Years of smoking had severely damaged her lungs, and by the early 1990s, she was battling lung cancer, a diagnosis that quickly became terminal. Nancy Walker died on March 25, 1992, in Studio City, California, at the age of 69 from lung cancer. She was laid to rest in California after a career that had lasted nearly 5 decades across Broadway, television, and film. At the time of her death, her estimated net worth was about $5 million, earned through acting, directing, and long-running television roles. Rock Hudson as Stuart McMillan. Rock Hudson was born on November 17, 1925, in Winnetka, Illinois. At 46 years old, he played Stuart McMillan, the sophisticated San Francisco police commissioner in McMillan and Wife. His calm charm and sharp humor carried the series for 6 seasons and turned him into the face of the show. But behind that polished television hero was a private life built on fear and pressure. In 1955, gossip magazine Confidential prepared a scandal about his sexuality, and within days, Hudson suddenly married Phyllis Gates, the secretary of his powerful agent, Henry Wilson. The wedding shocked even close friends. Gates later said she truly believed she had married a loving husband, yet the marriage quickly turned cold and tense. They lived under constant rumors, arguments grew frequent, and by 1958, she filed for divorce, citing mental cruelty. The failed marriage left emotional damage and deep isolation. Then came the secret that would ultimately end his life. On June 5, 1984, Rock Hudson was diagnosed with AIDS. He tried to keep the diagnosis hidden and continued working, even appearing on Dynasty in early 1985 while his health was already failing. Not long after, he collapsed in Paris while seeking experimental treatment. Within days, the truth spread across the world. One of Hollywood's biggest stars was dying. Hudson passed away on October 2, 1985, at his Beverly Hills home at age 59 from AIDS-related complications. He was cremated the same day, his ashes scattered in the Pacific Ocean near Catalina Island, leaving behind an estate estimated at about $10 million. John Shuck as Sergeant Charles Enright. John Shuck was born on February 4, 1940, in Boston, Massachusetts. At 31 years old, he played Sergeant Charles Enright, the dependable detective and loyal partner to McMillan in McMillan and Wife. His quick wit and grounded personality made Enright one of the most memorable characters in the series. Yet Shuck's life behind the camera also carried emotional turbulence. In 1978, he married actress Susan Bay, and the relationship began with excitement and Hollywood promise. They welcomed a son, Aaron Bay Shuck, while Shuck continued appearing in projects like Roots and later the comedy series Holmes and Yo-Yo. But long filming schedules, Constant travel and growing career pressures slowly fractured the marriage. Arguments became frequent, and the relationship deteriorated. By 1983, the couple divorced, ending a difficult chapter that forced Shuck to rebuild both his family life and emotional stability. Unlike many actors of his era, Shuck avoided major public health crises, but the strain of constant television work still shaped his life. Through the 1980s and 1990s, he kept working relentlessly, appearing in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, Babylon 5, and later guest roles in Law and Order. During those years, he finally found personal balance again. In 1990, he married painter Harrison Houlet, a relationship that brought the stability he had struggled to find for years. As of 2026, John Shuck is 86 years old and living a quieter life after decades on screen and stage. He occasionally participates in theater projects and fan conventions tied to his science fiction roles. His estimated net worth is around $1 million, built through steady television work and Broadway performances. Susan St. James as Sally McMillan. Susan St. James was born on August 14, 1946, in Los Angeles, California. At 25 years old, she played Sally McMillan, the witty and fearless wife of Stuart McMillan in McMillan and Wife. Her sharp humor and playful chemistry with Hudson gave the detective series its unique charm and earned her 4 Emmy nominations. Behind that glamorous image, her love life was far less stable. Her first marriage to Richard Newbert in 1967 collapsed within a year. In 1971, the same year McMillan and Wife began, she married makeup artist Thomas Lucas, and the couple had 2 children, Sunshine Lucas and Harmony Lucas. But as St. James filmed episodes of the series and appeared in projects like Outlaw Blues and later Love at First Bite, the pressure of work and family slowly fractured the relationship. By 1977, the marriage ended in divorce. Years later, she met television producer Dick Ebersol, marrying him in 1981 and building what seemed like a stable family with 3 sons. Then, tragedy struck with brutal force. On November 28, 2004, a private plane carrying Dick Ebersol and 2 of their sons crashed during takeoff in Colorado. Her husband survived with severe injuries, but their 14-year-old son, Teddy Ebersol, was killed instantly. The shock devastated the family and left St. James emotionally shattered. The loss changed everything. She stepped further away from acting, choosing family and charity work over Hollywood. As of 2026, Susan St. James is 80 years old and living largely out of the spotlight. She spends much of her time supporting charitable causes such as the Special Olympics and appearing only occasionally in public events tied to her television legacy. Her estimated net worth is about $60 million, built through decades of television success, investments, and business ventures. Richard Gilliland as Sergeant Steve DiMaggio. Richard Gilliland was born on January 23, 1950, in Fort Worth, Texas. At 26 years old, he played Sergeant Steve DiMaggio, the young police officer assisting the San Francisco investigations in McMillan and Wife. His presence brought fresh energy to the series during its later seasons. His personal life would later become deeply tied to another television star. Gilliland first married Lindsay Harrison in 1975, but the relationship collapsed in 1984 as his acting career struggled to gain momentum. Then came a turning point while filming the sitcom Designing Women. There he met actress Jean Smart, and their chemistry quickly moved beyond the set. The two married in 1987 and built a quiet family life together, raising their son Connor Gilliland and later adopting Forrest Gilliland from China. But hidden behind that stable marriage was a health problem that few people knew about. Gilliland had been battling heart disease, and in his later years the condition worsened quietly. Friends said he rarely complained and continued working whenever he could, appearing in television guest roles and stage projects. Even as his wife Jean Smart won awards and revived her career in shows like Hacks, Gilliland preferred a quieter life, focusing on family rather than Hollywood attention. Richard Gilliland died suddenly on March 18, 2021, in Los Angeles at the age of 71 after complications from heart disease. His death shocked friends and colleagues who had seen him only weeks earlier. He left behind his wife Jean Smart, their 2 sons, and a career spanning more than 4 decades of television and film. At the time of his death, his estimated net worth was around $4 million, earned through steady roles across American television. Martha Raye, as Agatha Martha Raye, was born on August 27, 1916, in Butte, Montana. At 60 years old, she played Agatha, the loud, eccentric guest character who brought explosive comedic energy to McMillan and Wife. Her bold voice and unpredictable humor instantly shook up the show's tone and made her appearances impossible to ignore. Her personal life, however, was far more chaotic than any comedy role. Raye married 7 times, beginning with makeup artist Hamilton Buddy Westmore in 1937, and later band leader David Rose. Most of those marriages collapsed quickly. Only her marriage to dancer Nick Condos, with whom she had a daughter, Melody Condos, lasted nearly a decade before ending in 1953. Years later, long after her film success in Rhythm on the Range and Chaplin's Monsieur Verdoux, Raye shocked Hollywood again by marrying Mark Harris in 1991, a man 33 years younger whom she had known for only 3 weeks. The marriage sparked endless rumors, family conflict, and bitter arguments about money and control. Behind the scenes, her health and personal struggles were spiraling. Years of alcohol abuse and emotional turmoil pushed her into a suicide attempt in 1956 when she overdosed on sleeping pills. She survived, but the damage continued. By the late 1980s, her body was failing. Alzheimer's disease, severe heart problems, and a devastating stroke in 1990 left her physically weakened. The stroke led to horrific complications. Doctors amputated her left leg in 1993 and her right leg in 1994. Martha Raye died on October 19, 1994, at 78 years old, from pneumonia at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. Her final years were surrounded by family disputes over her estate after she rewrote her will shortly before death, leaving much of her remaining fortune to her husband, Mark Harris. At the time, her net worth was estimated at about $5 million, built from decades of films, television appearances, and advertising work. Martin E. Brooks, as Deputy D.A. Chapman. Martin E. Brooks was born on November 30, 1925, in New York City, United States. At 47 years old, he played Deputy District Attorney Chapman, the sharp legal authority who frequently supported McMillan's investigations in McMillan and Wife. His serious courtroom presence added tension and credibility whenever the series moved from police work to legal battles. But the path that led Brooks to television was far from easy. He grew up in a struggling New York household, pushing him toward theater at a young age as both escape and survival. Broadway became his proving ground, and his powerful stage work in I Am a Camera even earned him a Tony Award nomination. Yet Hollywood recognition arrived later through television roles, including the popular science fiction series The $6 Million Man. Through the decades, Brooks quietly built a reputation as a dependable character actor who could move easily between stage drama and television storytelling. While his career remained steady, his personal life carried its own emotional story. For many years, Brooks stayed close friends with film producer Edie Landau, and their bond deepened after the death of her husband. In 1993, the two reconnected and eventually married, forming a quiet partnership that lasted for the rest of Brooks' life. Their relationship was deeply supportive, especially during the later years when Brooks slowed down professionally and focused more on family life. Martin E. Brooks died on December 7, 2015, at his home in Studio City, Los Angeles, just 1 week after celebrating his 90th birthday. His death was reported as natural causes, ending a career that had stretched across Broadway stages and classic television series. At the time of his passing, his estate was estimated at about $2 million, accumulated through decades of acting and stage work. Gloria Stroock, as Maggie Gloria Stroock, was born on July 10, 1924, in New York City, United States. At 50 years old, she played Maggie, the efficient and loyal secretary assisting Stuart McMillan in McMillan and Wife. Her calm professionalism helped balance the show's fast-moving detective stories and made Maggie a quiet but essential presence in the series. Behind the camera, Stroock's life revolved around both family and theater. She grew up in a household connected to the costume industry, which exposed her early to the performing arts. By the 1940s, she was already appearing on Broadway in productions such as Little Women and Truckline Cafe. Later, she moved into film and television, appearing in movies like Fun with Dick and Jane and The Competition. Yet while her acting career moved steadily forward, her personal life remained centered on one long relationship. In 1956, Stroock married television writer and producer Leonard B. Stern, the creator behind several major television comedies. Unlike many Hollywood marriages, theirs endured for decades. The couple raised 2 children, Kate and Michael, while balancing careers in entertainment. When Stern died in 2011, the loss marked the end of a marriage that had lasted 55 years, leaving Stroock to spend her later years largely away from the spotlight. Gloria Stroock died peacefully on May 5, 2024, at her son's home in Tucson, Arizona, at the remarkable age of 99 from natural causes. At the time of her death, her estimated net worth was around $1 million, earned from years of steady roles and her family's work in television production. Bill Quinn, as Police Chief Paulson. Bill Quinn was born on May 6, 1912 in New York City, United States. At 62 years old, he played Police Chief Paulson, the calm but authoritative head of the department overseeing McMillan's investigations in McMillan and Wife. His steady presence gave the series a sense of realism and discipline whenever the story moved inside the police hierarchy. His life had begun under the harsh lights of vaudeville stages. As a child, he performed with his brothers in traveling acts organized by his actress mother. The stage became his only education. By the 1930s, he was already working in radio dramas, later moving into television where he appeared in shows like The Rifleman and The Mary Tyler Moore Show. Yet through all the decades of auditions and small roles, one relationship remained constant. In 1939, he married Mary Catherine Rhoades, and the two built a quiet family life while Quinn slowly accumulated more than 150 screen appearances across film and television. Age eventually slowed the tireless character actor, but he never truly stopped working. Even in his 70s, he continued appearing on television and film sets, including a memorable appearance in Star Trek V, The Final Frontier in 1989, where he played the father of Dr. McCoy. Bill Quinn died on April 29, 1994, in Camarillo, California, just days before his 82nd birthday, at the age of 81 from natural causes. He was buried at San Fernando Mission Cemetery, leaving behind his wife, Mary Catherine Rhoades, and their 3 daughters after a marriage that had lasted more than 50 years. At the time of his passing, his net worth was estimated at about $1 million, earned from a lifetime of steady work in radio, television, and film. Andrew Duggan as Harlan Royce. Andrew Duggan was born on December 28, 1923, in Franklin, Indiana, United States. At 48 years old, he played Harlan Royce, the powerful businessman and political figure who often acted as a rival authority to Stuart McMillan, challenging the police investigations and influencing major decisions behind the scenes in McMillan and Wife. His deep voice and commanding presence made Royce feel like a man whose power could quietly shape the outcome of an entire case. His career began long before television fame arrived. During World War II, Duggan served in the U.S. Army in a special entertainment unit led by actor Melvyn Douglas. That wartime experience unexpectedly opened the door to acting when he later appeared on Broadway in plays such as The Rose Tattoo. By the 1960s, he had become a familiar face in films and television, appearing in political thriller 7 Days in May and starring as cattle baron Murdoch Lancer in the Western series Lancer. Off-screen, his personal life remained remarkably stable. In 1953, he married Broadway dancer Elizabeth Logue, whom he affectionately called Betty, and the couple raised 3 children while Duggan built a career that eventually reached nearly 200 screen credits. Then illness began quietly reshaping his life. Around 1980, Duggan was diagnosed with throat cancer. Despite the diagnosis, he continued working, appearing in television productions like Rich Man, Poor Man, and later portraying historical figures such as President Eisenhower in the biography J. Edgar Hoover. But the disease slowly weakened him, and by the late 1980s, the cancer had spread beyond recovery. Andrew Duggan died on May 15, 1988, at the age of 64 after his long battle with throat cancer. He left behind his wife Elizabeth Logue and their 3 children after 35 years of marriage. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at about $2 million, earned through decades of film, television, and stage performances that made him one of Hollywood's most recognizable authority figures on screen. Carole Cook as Carole Crenshaw. Carole Cook was born on January 14, 1924, in Abilene, Texas, United States. At 48 years old, she played Carole Crenshaw, a lively socialite whose sharp personality stirred tension in McMillan's world in McMillan and Wife. Her bold, comedic style instantly energized the episodes she appeared in. But the road to Hollywood had started in poverty. Born Mildred Frances Cook, she grew up in a struggling Texas household. Determined to escape that life, she studied theater and eventually reached Broadway before catching the attention of comedy legend Lucille Ball. From there, her career exploded across television and film, with appearances in The Lucy Show, Here's Lucy, and later movies like The Incredible Mr. Limpet and 16 Candles. Yet behind the scenes, Cook's personal life was defined by one lasting love. In 1964, she married actor and writer Tom Troop, a relationship that would quietly become one of Hollywood's longest marriages. While many celebrity couples collapsed under fame and pressure, Cook and Troop remained together for nearly 6 decades. Through stage productions, television guest roles, and film appearances such as American Gigolo, the couple supported each other's careers while building a life largely away from scandal. But in her final years, Cook's health began declining as heart failure slowly weakened her body. Carole Cook died on January 11, 2023, in Beverly Hills, California, just 3 days before her 99th birthday, at the age of 98, from heart failure. At the time of her death, her estimated net worth was about $5 million, accumulated through decades of film, television, and theater work, alongside the man who remained her husband until her final day. Barbara Rhoades as Waitress. Barbara Rhoades was born on March 23, 1947 in Poughkeepsie, New York. At 25 years old, she played Waitress, a quick-tongued young woman who briefly crossed paths with McMillan's investigations in McMillan and Wife. Even in a small appearance, her bold, comedic energy stood out. Her ambition had begun very early. As a child, she pushed herself into dance and stage performance, determined to escape a quiet, small-town life in New York. By the late 1960s, she had already signed an exclusive contract with Universal Pictures and quickly appeared in films like The Shakiest Gun in the West and later television hits such as Soap. In 1979, she married television producer Bernie Orenstein, and unlike many Hollywood relationships, their marriage remained steady for decades. They lived a quieter family life and raised their son, Alec Orenstein. Through the years, Rhoades avoided the kind of public scandals that damaged many careers of her generation. Instead, she kept working steadily, appearing in shows like Starsky and Hutch, Columbo, and Murder, she wrote, while also returning occasionally to theater. Though she stepped away from major Hollywood productions later in life, her reputation remained that of a reliable actress who could bring humor and unpredictability to almost any role. As of 2026, Barbara Rhoades is 79 years old and living largely outside the spotlight in Connecticut with her family. She occasionally appears at television reunions and industry events while enjoying a quieter life away from the fast pace of Hollywood. Her estimated net worth is around $1 million, built from decades of television, film, and stage work. Paul Sorenson as Officer Ryan. Paul Sorenson was born on February 16, 1926, in Kenosha, Wisconsin, United States. At 45 years old, he played Officer Ryan, a dependable police officer assisting the department during McMillan's investigations in McMillan and Wife. His solid presence fit perfectly into the show's realistic police world. Sorenson's path to acting was shaped by war and determination. After moving to California in the 1940s, he trained at the Pasadena Playhouse, but his career paused when he served with the U.S. Army during the Korean War. When he returned, Hollywood slowly opened its doors. He began appearing in Western television shows like The Rifleman and Gunsmoke, eventually building a career filled with hundreds of small but memorable roles. Off-screen, he built a strong personal life with his wife, Jacqueline May, whom he married in 1957. Together, they raised 2 sons, while also running acting workshops that helped train young performers. In later years, Sorenson shifted away from the constant pressure of television work. He and Jacqueline became deeply involved in ministry and community service, even becoming ordained ministers. Yet fans still remembered him from appearances in series like Dallas, The Brady Bunch, and several episodes connected to the Star Trek universe. His career quietly spanned more than 3 decades of American television. Paul Sorenson died on July 17, 2008, in Cardiff-by-the-Sea, California, at the age of 82. He was survived by his sons and extended family after more than 50 years of marriage to Jacqueline May, who had passed away 6 years earlier. At the time of his death, his estimated net worth was about $1 million, the result of a long career filled with hundreds of film and television appearances. After more than 55 years, the faces we once watched every week on McMillan and Wife have changed in ways few fans ever imagined. Which transformation surprised you the most? And which cast member's story shocked you the most after all these years? If you enjoyed this journey back to McMillan and Wife, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next deep dive into the lives of classic TV stars.